Why did my family and I move to Bali? It's a question that I get asked very often. And over the last 7 years of living here in Bali, it's a question I've also asked myself a number of times too. Because look, is Bali an amazing place? Look, it's absolutely incredible. The things that our kids can do that they just wouldn't have access to in really anywhere else in the world, or certainly other Western countries, for sure. But why did we really move to Bali? Look, the real reason for me, I'd been successful in business in Australia. I'd moved to the US and was making really good money over there. But you know what? I didn't have the lifestyle that I wanted. And to be honest, I was looking at my kids, who my son was 9 at the time, and sorry, 8, just about to turn 9. My daughter was 3. I mean, I'd actually looked at this beforehand, but we're in America. I'm traveling in 45 minutes to get to work. Some of you may be able to relate to this. 45 minutes, an hour back, or even longer. I'd see the kids at arsenic hour when my wife's trying to get everyone fed, and then they're sort of whisked off to bed because everyone's got things they need to do the next day. To me, that just didn't seem like the ideal lifestyle. Now, coming from Australia, I was quite shocked at the work ethic in the US. I mean, it really is like a badge of honor to just grind and grind and grind, and then when you've got time on the weekend, get a part-time job so you can grind some more. And I really got to the point where I realized that that's just not what I want in my life. I listen to those who are older and wiser than me, and when I hear them tell stories about their kids growing up in a blink of an eye, I can't believe they're now adults, because it seems like only yesterday that they were, had them on their knee, or they were, playing with them in the park or whatever. And that really resonated with me, and it always stuck in my mind. So we very made the decision to move to, once we went online, made the decision to move back to Australia for a couple of months and then try Bali. Now, I'll be honest with you, we made the commitment to try for 6 weeks. So we packed for a long holiday in Bali. Uh, yeah, that was 7 years ago. That turned 6 weeks turned into another month, which turned into another 3 months, which turned into, we'll just wait till the end of the year, and then here we are. So I'd really hope that a lot of our stuff is still back in my parents-in-law garage. Fingers crossed. But look, we moved here for the experience. We moved here to try something new. We didn't want the adventure of traveling overseas and living overseas to stop. And we'd been to Bali many, many times. I first came here as an 18-year-old in 1989. And one of the things that spoke to us was what we could do for our kids. I love the fact that there's a certain amount of safety in Western countries, and there's a certain amount of uh, security in that knowledge. But what I also know is some of the biggest challenges in life, like how do you deal with bullies at school? How do you overcome challenging moments? How do you get what you want, but also give other people what they want too? These are all things that I knew if our children were in a more supportive and a more holistic lifestyle, that would help them to be able to navigate these things and take risks. I don't want my children to go completely unscathed through their childhood, only for them to get their license when they're 17 years old and then start taking risks. So, has my son fallen off his motorbike? Yeah. Has my daughter hurt herself doing gymnastics and diving off crazy stuff? That's way beyond her level. Yeah, she has. And did they both learn from that? Absolutely. They learn incredibly value lessons. So those bumper rails, if you like, using the 10-pin bowling analogy, they're not here. There are huge drop-offs at the side of roads. If you fall, you're probably going to die. There are sometimes no handrails, which terrifies me more than it does them most of the time. But it gives them the ability to grow up in a society where they take responsibility for their actions and the consequences of those actions. Now, we do the same. We've had some challenges over here, and look, growing up or I guess raising kids in a different country is really challenging, especially somewhere like Indonesia, where it's very different to Western cultures. Lots of challenges here, lots of frustrations. Last night was one of them, driving to a restaurant for date night, and the roads washed out, just not car accessible. Now I was so far in it by then because I was, wedging past these barriers, which in hindsight were there for a reason, and I'm stuck. I got to reverse 400 meters with all this traffic behind me and people losing their minds. Well, they weren't. To be honest, I was the one losing my mind. The Balinese are like, yeah, well, yeah, he made a mistake. All right, let's just figure out how we can move out the way. So part of that is why we moved here as well, because we ultimately have no control. And what I love about the Balinese people is they give it up. They don't stress over it. Okay, something bad happened. Yeah. Oh, it's raining. I can't go out to do this. Well, that's how it is. We'll just move on. Whereas we want to control things and make it all about how we can, get it going our way. So part of it being here is also me learning and discovering how to be better at letting go. So lots of other things I can tell you about that ultimately was a move for our kids and for us as well. We spend so much quality time together. Look, I'm super passionate about what I do business wise, and I love helping fitness professionals and Pilates facilities to just make a huge difference in their communities by helping more people and therefore getting rewarded themselves. Like it really is a driving passion of mine, and I love it. Now that I get to do it, virtually is even more spectacular, and we're so appreciative of being in the position we are. Even last week when some people came over here and I had some face-to-face meetings, which was super fun, and presented to a few people again, which is what I love to do as well. I was able to do it whilst still jumping on my little scooter and heading back to our little head paradise here, and then spending the rest of the afternoon with my kids. So that's what's most valuable for me is time, because I know I can always make more money, but I can't get that time back. I hope that answers some of your questions. If you are thinking of moving to Bali, super happy to share my experiences as well. Or if you've got questions around why I move or what we do, yeah, hit me up. I'm an open book with this sort of thing, and we've made a ton of mistakes and also done some things right, which has helped us to create the lifestyle that I want for people I coach. If you've got a fitness business or a Pilates facility or studio and you're not living the life you want, let me know. That's where we can help you, because I've walked the walk, to be honest. I know exactly how to go from where you are to where you want to go. All right. Hit me up in DMs or post a comment below. Love to hear what your thoughts on Bali are. Speak to you all soon.